Hello, everybody, and welcome to Sparring Partners. Today, we're going to talk again about careers in telecoms, talent, and today specifically, we're going to talk about how this is changing for those of us, which are not that few of them, who do not have the standard background in engineering, sort of have a nonlinear career that is, you start up not thinking about telecoms, probably you end up with a degree with whatever you're interested in, and then you end up in telecoms. And what do you do? How is it that you can learn to fit in, or do you fit in? Do you have it? What are your strengths and weaknesses? And with me today, I have Linda Ligios, who is a principal innovation solution consultant at Digital Catapult in London. And Digital Catapult is a very interesting, excellent group of people who work in the UK to promote UK technology and in the UK and everywhere else. So Linda, thank you so much for being with us. And maybe you can start telling us what is it you do at Digital Catapult and how you ended up there.
Great, thank you. Hi, Monica, and hello everyone. Thank you for having me today. It's a great pleasure. Yes, so my work at Digital Catapult, I am basically leading the development and design of innovation programs to accelerate the practical adoption of deep tech at scale. So this means basically either designing large-scale R&D programs or commercial propositions, working with large corporates to help them really look at how deep tech can solve the problem. So it's quite an exciting role where obviously I work across sectors, and yes, telecom has been an area where I have kind of worked a little bit more in depth, let's say, in the last few years.
How did you get there? Because it's not, it wasn't linear. So how did you get into telecom?
Yes, it's been quite an exciting journey, actually. If you were to ask my younger self, would I be in telecom in 2025, I would have said no way, or meaning like I had no idea. So my background actually is in publishing. So I started to work at BBC magazines, where actually is where I think I've learned some of the key skills that are required to the innovation, and is adaptability, storytelling, but also kind of being able to recognize early signs or patterns in industry change. So my role there was to basically help with the launch of licensed editions across brands like Top Gear, GoFood, Teletubbies, and all those brands. So and really the time I was working very closely with the digital access management team. So it was a time where when magazines were shifting to online. So I really learned quite quickly the importance of digital transformation. But also one other skill that I've really treasured all my life is the fact that although sometimes it's undervalued, but the importance of actually translating technology for people who don't understand it. So simplifying, and being that bridge between the technologists and the kind of more senior stakeholders who actually need to understand, how to apply the innovation. And then from there, I moved into, I retrained in broadcasting. Then I landed a job at the British Library, more in the cultural heritage sector, where I started to learn about digital preservation. From there, I ended up working at King's College in a European funded project. And that's when I started to really get more curious and interested in technology. At the time, of course, it was still, a job where maybe I was playing more a role about knowledge sharing, stakeholder engagement and collaboration, but still it was a first good step. And then from there, I worked with a startup. They were scouting innovators from across the globe. And that's where I also started to play a role of translating technology into real business value. And then the story is history. After that, I landed a job at the Catapult and really starting to get a greater understanding of how technology, in particular deep tech, can help to solve real problems. So quite as I said, no linear career, but somehow the beauty about it is that each role informed the next step. And of course, I had to stay curious and open, and also say yes to opportunities that were quite challenging. And I think what has helped me was really to to stay curious and not underestimate the potential of growing in a sector that was for me, new in a way.
Yeah, at some point somebody young was kind of coming in and I say, ignorance can be a big asset in the sense that you don't know you don't know as much as, an engineer about a technology, but in a way, sometimes it's an advantage because you can be more like open in terms of what kind of questions in trying to figure out things. You might learn things in different ways. And so, that's interesting. And I hear you, because my first degree is in philosophy, and then I went and got a PhD in cognitive science. So when I started, I knew nothing about telecoms. And when I was looking for a job, and actually, David Cleveley was the one that hired me into telecoms, and I just did a podcast with him, and we talked about that a little bit. Everybody I was talking to when I was interviewing, they would say, well, why do you want to work in telecoms? You know nothing. Why don't you work in biotech since you have a background, which actually didn't, because I was doing neuroscience, not biotech. And I'm like, well, I'm going to learn it. I mean, what's the big deal? I didn't see what the problem was. But at that time, not having a background in engineering was a real problem. Did you have that issue? Did anyone say, well, you're not an engineer. Well, why are you looking for? Why you want to have this job? Are you qualified?
Well, let's say I had people who challenged me, asking me, you are not a woman in tech because you don't have an engineer. So I did have that question once, but I stay strong in my belief that, yes, of course, you, depending on the role that you have, you do require an engineering role. But for my job, really, what I've learned is that it's important to have that kind of understanding, of course, of what you're talking about, and being able to connect the dots and again translate, the understanding of the technology into that real business value. And I think, yes, I had my moments where, at the beginning, especially my early career, or especially even entering telecom, where I felt a bit as an outsider, or thinking, okay, well, expecting from myself that I needed to know it all. But then I learned quickly that actually, if it was maybe good enough at the beginning to have an understanding of what I was talking about, but also the ability to translate that knowledge into more simple terms for people who don't, understand much about telecom, I think has been quite important and quite an asset that's kind of allowed me to also get a bit of credibility when it comes to being able to translate, the complexity maybe of certain technologies to an audience, for example, who doesn't understand it, such as, we have to deal with policymakers, but also, companies who might want to adapt it, but they don't fully understand, maybe immersive technology, why 5G, for example, can help them, accelerate or improve their product. So, it's not been without challenge. However, what is really helped me is also kind of cross that boundary where you've got that fear about the tech and what these different also terminologies. And what I found is that in the moment that I kind of relaxed a little bit and allow myself to learn and to stay curious, is that that fear disappeared and I was more open to actually learn. And that learning, of course, has made me even more curious, because as soon as I started to see the innovation opportunities, so I tried to find in it what really made it interesting for me. For example, with Open RAN, there are new technologies and an opportunity to, for example, use AI to actually make the network more intelligent. So for me, that was a very interesting point. So I found that as almost like a motivation for myself to learn more. And and now, of course, the beauty about my role is that I don't need necessarily to know, and I don't pretend that I know everything, because we have experts, in the tech. But, I need to know enough to be able to, of course, know what I'm talking about and speak to the engineers and understand what they mean, when they talk about their deep tech stuff.
So now this is very interesting. You talk about translating, but you translate for an audience. So how knowing who the audience is going to change you, or how do you take that into account?
Well, that's absolutely, very, very important because, if you don't know your audience, it's very difficult to actually relate and a topic that matters to them. So for me, one of the most important things is to really understand what are the priorities for my audience, what matters to them, why that particular technology or whatever concept is important for them, and what difference it can make into their life. For example, I mean, if we're talking to policymakers, of course, they want to understand what are the challenges that maybe innovators might be facing in applying a certain technology, and how that translates into, regulations or new type of practices, policies that can make it easier for innovators to kind of progress in their in scaling their products. So I would say definitely, understanding the audience and what they need, what matters to them, their goals, their objectives, and really also the level of understanding of technology is very important because, if you're talking to someone who've got a bit of understanding, of course, you might be using some terms, but if they have no knowledge at all, that's when, of course, it's about using maybe more simple terms and really using practical examples. And I like to use metaphors. And one that I kind of clearly I've treasured when I started to enter the world of telecom, for example, and the use of 5G. Someone was telling me about, imagine like a motorway, you got different lanes, and 5G can allow you to use a different lane for a different type of use. So if you need a fast lane, and you need faster connectivity, then you could do slicing and splicing of the network. So using metaphor, I think, is something that can be quite useful for audiences that have got maybe a more limited understanding of the technology and what it can do.
And probably you don't want to use the network graphs. This is my personal thing here, is that a lot of people, the more technical they are, the more the graph, the network graph, where you have all the network elements, all the interfaces and whatever, which once you understand them, they're incredibly helpful. But if you're just getting to the topic, it's really overkill.
Yes,
and
yes.
It's just very hard because once you know why the graphs are so important, you just want to show them, and then you can see that a lot of times people just go showing those things very small font that you cannot even read it, nobody can understand it, the acronyms are not spelled out. I mean, clearly you're up for disaster. You're not reaching anybody.
Absolutely. Yes.
And that's, I think it's a it's a real issue, and that's where not being an expert helps, because you are not into the probably the network graph crowd. So I know how to read them, but I just don't, it's not my thing. So
Yes.
So now let's talk about, so okay, there are some advantages of having a broader experience, and yours was in publishing, but other people might have it in other things, whatever. So what is the advice that you would give to someone that wants to get into telecoms or something similar, and that has a non-standard or a different background, whatever you want to call it?
Yes, I think telecom, but I would say also, yes, any type of technology. Definitely someone could start from where they are in terms of the expertise that they have, whether that's, I don't know, marketing or operations or strategy, and start to, think about how those skills might be needed in a sector. I mean, any company, even like a telecom company, they always need this kind of skills, right? And then you can always kind of add the technical literacy on top. And I think nowadays it's becoming even more easier to kind of, study or learn or whatever, you need to do to get to that level where at least you can become confident in kind of talking the tech talk, let's say. But yes, I would say starting from, first of all, being curious about what roles there might be within those companies, and starting to see how their skills apply. And I think for me, I always see lots of transferable skills, even working in technology and innovation. So, the ability to kind of identify opportunities, translate business value, forming, building new collaborations. So stakeholder management is definitely a skill that will always apply, and be able to translate opportunities into real business value. So yeah, I think start from where you are in terms of the skills, and then start to become curious, look at opportunities, and start to learn also about the tech, and maybe some area of the tech that might be more exciting for you.
Yeah. So, and even if they don't ask for somebody with your background, just go for it anyway, I guess. How is that now? Now that AI is sort of becoming sort of an issue, and you see now that especially if you look at the younger generations, where it is people just out of college that have the biggest trouble getting hired. How is that going to be different for them compared to what it was for us, where I guess we both got into telecoms at ages where there was a need for others, and now well, I guess we have a shortage of talent in telecoms, so people that don't particularly care to come to work in telecoms, but there's also an issue where AI might be replacing some of those jobs. So how should we think about that?
Yeah, well, I kind of see AI as the double sword, meaning, on one side, it is, of course, kind of replacing some certain activities in a way. So for a younger generation that is trying to prove the value at the beginning, that might be a little bit more difficult. But on the other hand, I kind of see it as an equalizer in the sense that it's making knowledge even more accessible, but also giving young people, or in general anyone, the opportunity to be even more creative and simplify certain maybe tasks, or learn from the way actually AI works. And there are skills that are becoming more important. So I think if I was a young person now, I would definitely want to learn how AI is used in different sectors, in different technologies, and see how I can apply my curiosity, my skills, and my interest, and be able to learn how to use it in the best possible way. I mean, if we were to talk about, of course, things like generative AI, ChatGPT, learn how to ask the right questions, learn how, you can apply in a way that can make your life easier. And I think in a way, even for applying for jobs, I mean, and also to build a certain level of credibility or kind of knowledge in the sector. Potentially someone were to start learning now telecom, they could even have a free platform where they could become an advocate for telecom, using places like YouTube, and building a bit of sort of also visibility for what they can offer. Of course, I guess young people always want the first step into a job. There are, I mean, still available, I guess, internship opportunities, but also opportunities to maybe do kind of a short-term contract. And I think, finding the way of learning on the job, but also not be scared of maybe at the beginning of a career, try different things, because I personally believe that we're moving more and more into a kind of non-linear career, but also potentially portfolio career, where we might be in a place where, because the technology is shifting so fast and the job market is shifting so fast, we might have to need to learn different experiences and then leverage those to actually have different types of roles in our work life. Maybe one side maybe freelancing, on another building, being a facilitator of workshops, on another one maybe have a more regular job. And I'm not saying, of course, that this is easier for everyone, but there might be an opportunity that shouldn't be underestimated for those who maybe prefer a more independent kind of style of working and living.
No, absolutely. That's actually very interesting because, again, when I actually started my job, so when I became independent, that was kind of still sort of unusual, because you were expected to have a job. And now I actually don't know that many people. I mean, I guess it's still the majority, but it's more and more people that have sort of non-traditional jobs. So, they might have multiple things they're doing at the same time, or whatever arrangement. So I guess and that sort of is complementary to having a non-standard background, because you have, so everything becomes much more fluent, flexible. And if you are curious and you like to see change, is actually a great thing. again, not for everybody, clearly, and not for every type of jobs. We still need a lot of jobs. We need somebody at the stores, well, maybe not for a long time, but anyway, there are some jobs where you cannot do that. But in our field, there is so much that you can do. There's not the 9 to 5 job is just seems like a thing of the past.
Yes, I think obviously, we all want to need the job security, right? But I think to be open to possibilities, I think will definitely could be an interesting path and maybe more, I don't know if it's going to be like the way for everyone, as you said, but there's definitely opportunities there for someone who wants to experiment and having that career that allows you to maybe shift, from one talent to the other. And I think we are human beings that are not necessarily maybe down to do one thing. So, and it depends, right? We're all different. So there might be someone who prefers that more linear career and their passion is maybe, I don't know, following I don't know, a lawyer career, but it depends on kind of your level of interest, your passions. And what I'm finding is that sometimes you can actually, there's value in using complementary skills that can actually be matched and leverage each other to build something new and creative. And I think that's where innovations often can also grow when you combine different skills and expertise. So yeah, be open and always, I would say, never stop learning, because I mean, we're here, things change from one day to the other, and there are opportunities to learn new things every day.
And that's what makes it interesting, because as you said, when you started off, the day after you graduated, probably telecoms was the last thing on your mind. Because you just it's just you haven't even encountered it yet. And so you just need to be open to whatever, and you're not going to necessarily like everything. And similarly with the kind of you mentioned you were in publishing, but publishing also has changed. So for instance, a couple of decades ago, video was not a thing, and now, I remember at the beginning, I hated it. It's just like, to do video was just like terrible. You have to prepare, I would be stressed a few days before, and now like you do video all the time.
Yes.
There was a question, is anybody ever want to watch it? And now it's like, well, nobody wants to see it, do anything else. So I guess it's both what you work on and how you work on things, what kind of channels you use, how to communicate with people. So you have to keep changing everything.
Yeah, I mean, in my work, I have to, constantly, of course, we one-to-one connections and personal relations quite important. We do work, of course, remote in some way, and we use the digital tools that we're even using today. But I think, we try to adapt to the type of medium that the audience requires, whether that's also like developing like a digital report, but I do believe that the one-to-one in-person connection, there's nothing that can equate that, because you get a better understanding also of the person, how they react, their body, body language. And then it's something that I would never replace with anything else. But I think, these instruments that we have nowadays, and also AI adding new layers of creativity into that, are absolutely stunning. And I think we should try and make the most of them, and, in a way that serve us, and in a way that still stimulates our creativity, because of course there is a danger of, just using them because maybe, we've been lazy. But I think in the moment that you try to use them with that, intent of still listening to your intuition, not trusting fully, what AI is saying, that's when we can make the most of those tools.
Yeah, and I think it's very important to understand that there are tools to your advantage to make you more creative, because you have more time to create, rather than to submit to the AI output and just follow because I think that there is a real risk of having everything too homogenized, and also, as you said, it's something I think very important, the importance of the person-to-person contact, which we had, with COVID, that was, that was something that I think that we learned how important it is because we didn't have it for so long. And also at the same time, however, with the sort of AI and all the sort of social media, it's kind of tempted to be kind of lazy, if and just do everything online, but really there is still a huge advantage of one-to-one. Well, how do you see that changing? Because after COVID now we see more and more in-person events. How do you think we're going there? Is that do we have enough of them, or should we have more in-person
I
events?
think we have enough. Well, definitely we have. I think we've returned to where we were in a way, with in terms of the number of events that we have. There's still lots online. Sometimes there are also hybrid, and I think actually that's what I like. Sometimes we run events, and you still give those people who cannot join the opportunity to to be able to watch the streamlined version and reach a global audience. So in a way, I think doing events online has opened the door to people who couldn't before have the accessibility of those type of events and the knowledge that they can learn. So for me, it's absolutely amazing. But I think going back to your question, we are in a good place where we still have quite a bit of in-person events. Obviously, we're more online than we used to have before. And I think we will continue to have lots of in-person events because that's something that, as I said, create connections. There's nothing like exchanging contact details. Either, okay, you might still use a digital medium like a LinkedIn and you tap on someone's QR code, but still you're doing it with a handshake or just with a smile. So I don't see that ever stopping, if not increasing in new, maybe exciting ways.
Now, let me ask you a question about gender. And I know that it's something you care about. We all care about having more women in telecoms. Just if nothing else, because you just see more of them around. It's kind of fun to see that. But so what one way that typically we've been used sort of both from women's groups in general as society is to try to get more women to do STEM studies in college, with the understanding that that leads to more women in telecoms or technology. However, if you look at from the point of view of the non-traditional path, and then the fact that women are actually getting more and more degrees, more than men, so we're doing well in that respect. But still, there is more women that prefer to have a degree that is not in STEM. So, so here, I think personally that it'd actually be better, instead of encouraging women to do STEM, where obviously that's not really, for a lot of women, that's not what they want to do. That's not what I want to do, and that's not what I did, and that I'm happy not to have done it, is to let them do whatever, but then allow people without a STEM background to be in technology. I think it would be a better way to go about it. And I don't know whether you can talk, because you have basically did the same, right? No STEM in college, but then you did well. So should we try to encourage that more also for the purpose of getting more women in telecoms?
I think it's about making them aware of the opportunity, because of course STEM is still there as an option, and for those who are passionate
Yeah.
and want to go down an engineering path, it should be there and should be definitely still continuing to encourage. However, as you say, if someone doesn't want to go down that path, for young women to know that there are other ways is what is going to help them to believe that there are other opportunities. And I think it's all about role models. So for people to with maybe in a different way, or who are doing a job still in tech but not necessarily the engineering path, to show them that there are roles like that. Because when I used to search for jobs in the past, or as I said, I wasn't aware that today I could have this role. So it's making people aware of the opportunities and what are the skills required, so that even if they are currently in a different job, they can still understand how they could potentially get to a different position, and a position in tech, in a way that again is not linear, in a way that still leverages their skills in other areas. So I think it's about awareness role models, and yeah, really kind of saying the story of how someone got there, and what could be, tools available and courses, or or other ways to and maybe also communities. I find very important the opportunity to connect with women in the sector, who again, who are doing different roles, to really get an understanding of the variety of career opportunities.
Absolutely. And you are a good role model in that respect of, being able to be out there and, speak about it. So, Linda, well, thank you so much. It was very interesting, and to have
Thank
a
you.
different perspective on, what gets us going in the telecom sector.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me today.
And thank you all for listening, and do continue to listen to Sparring Partners, subscribe to the feed, and let others know about it if you liked it. Thank you so much.